Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast, where we believe high net worth individuals and their professional teams struggle to find great capital gains tax deferral options. Not having a clear plan is the enemy. Using a proven tax deferral strategy, such as the Deferred Sales Trust, is the best way to exit highly appreciated assets tax deferred so you can create, preserve, and grow your wealth. We are streaming on the Expert CRE Secrets podcast, the Capital Gains Tax Solutions YouTube channel. I am ecstatic about today's interview. We are going to be diving into how to becoming your own bank and leveraging the Deferred Sales Trust with it to do exponential wealth creation. Please welcome Mark Willis. Mark is a certified financial planner. He's been in the business for over 10 years now. He's absolutely crushing it. He's going to provide a ton of value. So let's just dive right in. Mark, how you doing, man?
Hey, great to be on. Thanks so much, Pierce.
Yeah, absolutely. So we were talking just briefly before the show. Give us a brief overview of the strategy that we're going to outline today.
Sure. Well, I've had the great privilege of working with clients all over the country in all 50 states, even really around the world in some cases. And the folks that I work with generally are real estate investors, business owners, even some NFL Super Bowl champions. But most people I get to meet with just want more agency, certainty, control over their life, and it feels like the last 3 years have sort of turned them into a tennis ball floating down life's gutter.
Sure.
And so many people I work with just want to begin to swim upstream and take back control of their highly appreciated assets and have some liquid contingency capital on the balance sheet. And so that's what we get to do as we help folks become their own source of financing.
Awesome. Let's go right into this. Tell us about this becoming your own bank concept really quickly.
Sure. Well, brief history lesson. Banks have been profitable for thousands of years.
Yeah.
In fact, there's a great book on the topic. It's called Debt, the First 5,000 Years by David Graeber. The title says it all, man. Banks are literally the most profitable business in the universe, in all of human history at least. And so why not take a look at how they're doing it?
Sure.
Okay, the four-letter word of debt has probably caused more financial pain and marriages lost and lives taken and than maybe any other four-letter word. So we might as well understand how banks are doing this. And it's my contention as a certified financial planner that whoever controls the banking function in your life will win this money game. More so than what you got on your mutual funds or how your real estate's doing. It's who is controlling the fundamental environment in which your money lives. That's the banking function. So it's the smallest hinge that can swing the biggest door in your financial life when you are your own banker.
All right. So what's the number one secret to becoming your own banker?
Well, in essence, it's knowing what to do and how to do it. And to be candid with you, too many people have run their financial wheels as hot as they can, trying to chase a higher rate of return in the stock market or in real estate. Whereas we need a tool that does effectively what banks have been allowed to do for generations. And the only tool that I've been able to find that helps us accomplish this is a variation on a 200 plus year old financial asset that grows guaranteed every single year. It's known as dividend paying whole life insurance, of all things. Right? If we could be talking about anything other than life insurance right now, Pierce, I'd be talking about that. Nothing less sexy than whole life insurance. I get it. However, I was more compelled than ever as I stumbled into this strategy myself, having 6 figures of student loan debt when I discovered this strategy. And so I'll just quickly kind of describe what it is.
Sure.
So then we can dive into some more detail of how this maybe is compared against, say, other names that are out there for this tool. We refer to this as Bank on Yourself, which is in contrast to what we might hear on YouTube and so forth. So in essence, what it is, it's a whole life contract designed for as little death benefit as possible. Cut the commissions down by 60, 80%, as much as we can. That allows you to flood more of your cash into the policy that you control. Second, the policy grows guaranteed every single year. So even when markets are crashing, this policy is growing and hitting all-time record highs. Third, it's liquid and accessible money, which we can use for anything we want. There are no prohibited transactions. Unlike a Roth IRA or self-directed IRA, there are no limits on how you can use the money. You can use it to flip a real estate deal or to fix up your kitchen or send the kid to college. Your call. Lastly, it is available for you to borrow against and treat it as if it were a bank for yourself. Okay.
Okay.
Hence the name, bank on yourself. When you do this, when you borrow against the policy, the cash value continues to compound and grow as if there was no loan. That's
Interesting.
uninterrupted compound growth.
Okay. Let's go practical here for a second. A lot of different ideas about this, right? You mentioned YouTube, right? We have these different products. Insurance products are um, you know, widely kind of talked about. Very, I think, misunderstood. Because when you said something like, "Oh, insurance is the least sexiest thing we could be talking about right now," yeah, but that's if people don't know what they're doing with it.
That's right.
What you're doing with it is you're self-funding yourself, which is incredible, growing at 5%, even though you're taking a loan out against it. So there's a bunch of different products out there it seems like between different companies providing different contracts. Can we just go over the top 2, 3 different products out there? Maybe I don't want to say competitors, but different products or different contracts out there, and shed some light on what each one does and how it's different than what you're talking about.
Yeah, sure. In fact, I've got a infographic I could share on my screen if that would be helpful for you. If you think that would be valuable and useful for your listeners and viewers, but if not, we can proceed. What do you think?
Let me see if I can get that over to you. Do you have the share
Sure.
screen button on the?
I do. I'll see if I can make it work. All right.
Yeah, see what happens.
Try to make it. All right. So here's what it takes to build a true bank on yourself policy. And in essence, there are over 29 different features, nuanced dials that need to be dialed in just right. Now, listen, there are 400,000 life insurance agents in the United States, Piers. 400,000.
Okay,
That's about one for every 800 Americans.
that's a lot.
All right. So if there were 400,000 heart surgeons and you could get your heart surgeon's license in about 2 months, and you, let's say, Pierce, let's say you desperately needed open heart surgery, God forbid, would you just stumble into anybody's office and ask for them to cut you open? I hope not.
No.
I hope not. What about if you had 400,000 elevator technicians, okay, and they could get their license in a month or two? All you want to do is get in that stinking elevator, push a button, and up you go, right?
Right.
But what we don't see is all of the engineering and specifications necessary to design that elevator safely so that it goes up with speed and quietness and control. All we want to do is push that button and it works. But if it's not designed properly, like you're seeing here, if even just one of these dials is mistimed, you could have a policy that's riddled with commissions, grows way too slowly, is not paying you a dividend, or even crucially, when you borrow against it, it can actually stop the growth of the cash. Now, candidly, many different financial professionals out there they have their life insurance license and they have a YouTube channel, and there you have it.
Yeah.
And now there's a lot of good people out there with good intentions, and I'm understanding of their desire to pass along the message that Nelson Nash, who started this concept years ago, was promoting. But unfortunately, much like Kleenex and Xerox, the brand of infinite banking, family wealth banking, wealth reserve banking, so many nicknames out there. There's a lot of good people doing work out there for this. But in my years of meeting with literally now thousands of families, I'll see somebody and they'll tell me, Mark, I've got one of those. Oh, yeah, my agent set this up for me. And then they send me the document. I just had one this morning. He sent me the document this morning. He's put in 70 grand a year into a policy, and the policy is going to stop growing when he borrows against it. Had another guy, he has over 800 grand in a number of different policies, and he's being charged egregious interest rates. In fact, the company, which I won't name, is actually going through a lawsuit right now. The insurance company is, from its own policyholders, because they believe that the interest is usury rates to borrow against their own life insurance. Now, you tell me, all you wanted to do, and most of our clients wanted to do, is get into a policy and start using it like a bank. But unfortunately, if their policy was not engineered properly, it's a lookout below plunge.
Interesting. Okay. So there are multiple different spin-offs of the bank on yourself concept. And on this show, we've had other people coming on and pitching the spin-offs, and they all sound great. So are there is there a particular contract or a particular product that has like 1, 2, 3 different elements in it that make it a bank on yourself versus an infinite banking or whatever? And quickly, just what are those?
Yeah, sure. Well, okay. So the story is Nelson Nash started the whole concept in the late 70s. He started figuring this thing out. He starts to promote it. He's an evangelist for the
Okay.
concept. He's not a pastor, but he was an evangelist. Now, he has since passed away several years ago. I had the great privilege of being taught by him, met with him and his family, but he has since passed on. He, in the late 90s, started to realize that a lot of people were starting to use his language and his books, but were using things like indexed universal life contracts, which are not a contract I would recommend for this tool.
Mm-hmm.
Or they'd be using a whole life insurance policy that stopped the growth of the policy's cash when you borrow against it. Now, let's just use some real numbers here. So if you've got $100,000 of cash value and you borrow out 70 grand to maybe, let's say, do a real estate deal
Mm-hmm.
or whatever you want to do, most insurance will only give you growth, meaning the guaranteed interest and the possible dividends on the remaining 30,000 bucks. You had 100, you borrowed out 70. Most are direct recognition. That's the phrase. Now, with bank on yourself designed policies, Nelson saw this happening with his original IP, his intellectual property. He met up with someone named Pamela Yellen in the late 90s, and they together formed Bank on Yourself. It was a joint venture between Nelson and Pamela Yellen. Pamela Yellen wrote some of the New York Times best-selling books on the topic, like The Bank on Yourself Revolution, and she protected the concept. She was more the pastor, you might say, in that she put some branding around it. She put some intellectual property and trademarking around it. And crucially, and this is the most important part, she created a credentialed and authorized training program for the likes of you and me, financial professionals. So CPAs, investment advisors, insurance agents go through Pamela's training. It took me about 3.5 years to get the credentials to label myself as a bank on yourself professional. So
Sure.
if you get nothing else out of this, just find a bank on yourself professional, and there's over 200 of us out there. If you work with a bank on yourself professional, all of this minutia, that infographic I just showed you, we already incorporate that into our engineering when we sit down and work with clients, if this tool makes sense for the client that we're working with.
Gotcha. Okay, so the moral of that story is there's a lot of different stuff to go on, probably too much that's outside the scope of this podcast. So just reach out to Mark and everything will be good. Let's talk about how to integrate this with the Deferred Sales Trust. So if anybody who's been listening to this podcast for any sort of period of time knows that what we're here doing is preaching. I don't want to say our own gospel, but maybe the second best gospel there
The
is,
fifth
right?
gospel. Yeah.
The fifth gospel, right? Like whatever, right? Like on how to exit highly appreciated assets, tax deferred, and then reinvest the proceeds. And part of the unique strategy with what we like to really promote is the Deferred Sales Trust, which is unique because you can sell any highly appreciated asset. It could be a stock, a bond, it could be a mutual, a business, a primary real estate, commercial real estate, anything that's highly appreciated, crypto. Diversify into other assets. It doesn't have to be the same like kind like you would find with a 1031. There's no time constraints like a 1031, and you don't have to be pigeonholed with this. It provides freedom in a variety of different ways, and this particular strategy is beautiful when you marry it with other strategies like the bank on yourself concept. So that's what we're going to dive into right now, right? How to take the proceeds that you've saved and deferred, right? And leverage them with the bank on yourself strategy so that you can exponentially grow your wealth. So Mark, why don't you just give a brief overview of how to marry the two?
Oh, man. Well, you'll have to forgive me because I get a little excited as a money nerd
Sure.
as I get into this. Okay. So let me walk through a story, a hypothetical scenario for someone who wants to do real estate investing. Okay. I realize that you can use a deferred sales trust beyond the scope of real estate, but let me use that as an example. And let's marry it with bank on yourself. So I agree with you, Pierce. I think bank on yourself and the deferred sales trust can be, and real estate or other assets can be like nitro and glycerin.
Yeah.
They're both great on their own, but they're powerful together. So let's use an example. Let's say that you're just getting started in life. You're maybe not even ready for the DST yet, but you're listening to this and you want to be there someday. So by starting a bank on yourself design policy, you're able to pack in the money that you can save within your means, whatever, repositioning assets into something we could put together for you. And you start to use that policy within 30 days of starting the policy, you have cash value that you can borrow against and use. Okay. So now we borrow against the policy when we're ready for it and we go buy some real estate. Remember, the policy is still growing with no taxes due on it. And now we also have our real estate appreciating and giving us rent money and whatever else the real estate is giving us, right? And let's say we repeat that process 12, 15 different times over your lifetime. Your policy is growing. Maybe it's got 7 figures in there by the time you finally reach out to the DST crew, because now you've appreciated that asset to such a point. Your real estate is worth tens of millions. Your whole life policy is worth several million. You give them a call. You say, hey guys, I got all this highly appreciated real estate over here. What do I do with it? Pierce, can you think of anything they might possibly do with, tens of millions of highly appreciated stock real estate? Any guesses? Where could that money or where could those assets possibly go?
Well,
Oh yeah.
It's a beautiful thing.
Oh yeah, man. Yeah, exactly. It's a beautiful thing. The Deferred Sales Trust, great option, right? We move those assets into the DST. And then what happens, right? Tell me. The next step is slowly that DST starts to pay me a check, right? Over time.
Yep.
Where does that money go? Well, some of it's going to go to the grocery store and my living expenses and my grandkids. But if I don't need to live on, let's say, 500 grand a year just getting, shoveled on top of me, where could I possibly put it? Oh, yeah. How about another whole life policy where it's going to stay growing, predictable, and guaranteed outside of the DST again? So we're taking those funds that were taxed slowly, deferred sales trust, right? We're getting that money out. This is the 1.0 DST. I realize there's a 2.0 out there, but you get that money out of the DST, put it back into a new or an existing life insurance policy. The life insurance policy is now liquid and predictably available to you now. You pull that money out income tax free for the rest of your life. You pass away, you leave that money as a giant lump sum. Remember, it is life insurance, so that's going to leave a giant income tax free gift to your family. What are they going to do with it? Oh yeah, we could get some real estate and we can get another DST going, and the cycle continues. So this is a 1, 2, 3-step process that can help a person go from 25 years old, just getting started on his first rental, all the way to a 25, 50, $100 million client that has worked with you and has worked with several policies and has truly become their family's bank.
One of the super, I would say, underrated valuable things about, kind of just this entire idea of what we're talking about, right? Is this is a tax flow plan on top of everything else, right? The deferred sales trust and the bank on yourself concepts, like you said, apart are both phenomenal strategies. But when you start combining them, it's unbelievable. One of the things you were talking about is like when you start taking distributions, the deferred sales trust is super flexible, right? So hypothetically, right, you have a very high income year, right? We can pause the DST payments, the income payments, for a couple of years. Ultimately, though, the IRS is going to be like, hey, are you ever going to get paid back on this? Because this is technically a note that you are going to get paid back in it. Well, when you do, right, and you don't need all the capital, where can you put the money, right? Bank on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It's perfect. And then you can start borrowing against that, paying yourself back interest instead of paying off the bank.
Right.
Like, why?
Yep.
They make so much money off of us, right? They clearly, a lot of them, are making poor decisions recently,
right.
And so now you have this ability to go ahead and fund a transaction that can pay forever. And it's
yeah, what we have in common, I think a lot of the things, we share a lot of the same values, our two organizations. And I think one of the pieces is control, and specifically loan repayment control.
Right.
Now, you mentioned that you have some control over when that DST pays you. You can pick and choose, you can raise it, you can lower it. Similarly, when you borrow against a life insurance policy that's designed this particular way, there's complete control over if or when you repay the loan. Now, you want to make sure to repay loans on policies. For one, it makes that money liquid and accessible again
Sure.
for you to use for your next real estate deal or whatever. Two, you don't want to lapse a policy. That's sort of like running your car straight into a tree. Don't want to do that. So just avoid the lapsing, which is pretty simple to do in most cases. Never had someone accidentally lapse a policy.
Sure.
But you want to watch out for that. But again, what you and I are both emphasizing here, I think rightly so, is control. Repayment should be something that we decide, not some banker. So whether it's the DST paying out or you repaying a loan to your policy, whether it's coming in or going out, you should be the one with your hand on the wheel, the steering wheel of your own life. Go figure.
Go figure. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that I think that element of control is something that a lot of people think they may get with some of these other strategies, but really they're still trapped, and they're still, what you're really preaching is freedom. Right. And that's what we're preaching too, right? We're preaching the freedom to go out and to do what it is that we want to do, to invest in what we want to invest in, to have, the control over when we pay the taxes. Look, everyone, like, all right, we're going to have to figure out a way to, pay our taxes. The tax code is 6,000 plus pages. 5 of them talk about how many, like, you got to pay in taxes. The other 9,995 plus pages are all about how to not pay taxes.
That's right.
There's a lot of really good incentives out there for people. I get all the time, oh, it sounds too good to be true. It sounds good to be true. I'm like, you haven't read the thing. Go read. Like, no one wants to read that thing. Like, it's, like, go read it. It's there.
Right.
It's there because all the people who are, created it don't want to pay taxes. So they create loopholes for themselves. All you have to do is play the same game. So it's just, these are the high level strategies, right? And these are why that you should listen to these types of podcasts, because this is financial education. And this is what gets you to the point to where you can say, like, okay, this makes sense. This doesn't. So it's phenomenal. And, Mark, we're coming up on our time here, and maybe this warrants a second conversation, and we can do, part 2.
We can get into, got a couple of examples we can get into next time, some case studies. It'd be a lot of fun. I'd love that.
And show exactly maybe like the actual mechanics of it in the house. So let's go ahead and we'll get that set up. In the meantime, Mark, where can people find you?
Well, our organizations like each other so much. We set up a straightforward landing page for folks can reach out. The best place to go is the same website you guys know and love already so much, capitalgainstaxsolutions.com/bank. That's Capital Gains Tax Solutions with an S.com/BANK. And you can learn more about the bank on yourself concept. And you can reach out to me or one of my colleagues to have a 15-minute phone strategy session to answer your questions and see if this would be a good fit for you.
Fantastic, guys. And as always, you can go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com, sign up for the mastermind every Friday, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. Go ahead to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com/bank. Let's have a call. Let's get us financially educated. Let's get our money out of the banks and control it ourselves. So, Mark, thank you so much for coming on, man. Really appreciate your time. Really appreciate your insights and your wisdom. We're definitely going to work to set up part 2 for this. So be on the lookout for that, guys. Thanks so much for paying attention, for watching. Hit the like button, subscribe button, notification bell. And thanks for listening, guys. As always, not having a plan is the enemy, right? And using strategies like the Deferred Sales Trust and the bank on yourself concept is the best way to create, preserve, and grow your wealth. So we'll catch you guys on the next one. Thank you so much. We'll see you. Bye now.